Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia. This is my mother, Ema. Hey, Ema.
Hi, I'm looking at my shadel here. Ah, thought I would have keep my shadel on the presentation.
You're looking great.
Thank you.
All right, so we were talking about this earlier
Still shows my
about
double chin.
just get a
Maybe I
chin
should get a
tuck, Ema.
chin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
get a chin tuck.
yeah.
You've been talking about a chin tuck for years. Um, so we were talking about gut feelings and when you followed your
Talking
gut.
about talking about guts. Yeah, I could use I
Yeah,
could say what's that called? Liposuction too.
for sure. Yeah, I don't think that stuff like really works because like you get rid of it, but you don't create healthy habits. You wind up back to square one. You know what I mean? It's like winning the lottery. They say like people who win the lottery go back to where they financial position where they were. Like it takes a while, but they're back to where they started. It really didn't do that much.
Well, you know what I
Um,
would do if I won the lottery? You know what I would do with that money?
Cocaine
No,
donations to Abbas Yisrael.
getting close.
Yeah, I know.
Your
So
brother, your brother's Chabad house in Cuervaras. I would take
yeah,
all of them
for
because that's a
sure.
Chabad house.
So we're talking about going by your gut, and you were telling me some stories about you had the gut feeling when you were younger about certain things and how it worked out for you. You care to explain?
See, gut feelings, gut feelings. Yeah, yeah, Cat. What do you think about that? Excuse me, Cat.
Yeah,
Get your tush out of my face. Thank you, Cat. Oh, God. Why do cats do that? They stick their tush in your face.
I think it's actually because when they were younger, they were kittens. It was their mother would lick their tush in order to get them to, like use the bathroom. So now it's like an instinctual thing when they think that you're their mother now.
Oh, great. Yeah, people always would call me Catty.
Waka 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 waka.
um, well, there was a time, one time when I was in seventh grade, there were a series of plane crashes.
Yeah.
And I noticed listening to the news that almost every single plane crash seemed to involve a Boeing 707.
Okay.
So I went to the office, being 13 years old and very idealistic, and I pointed this out to them and I said that could they please send out notices to the parents that if anyone's planning a trip, make sure you do not travel on a Boeing 707 because something seems to be wrong with these planes. And of course, the little 13-year-old girl coming to the office, and of course, the secretary had a good laugh about it. And oh, isn't she cute? And don't worry, I'm sure everything will be okay. And then 20 years later, I pick up a magazine and I'm reading. Yes, they did an investigation of the Boeing 707s around that time, and they found out, yes, there was a major defect in the Boeing
Interesting.
707s. I mean,
Wow.
what my question is, what is it that a 13-year-old kid who has no experience in any type of area it was an area aeronautic engineering, how was a 13-year-old girl able to figure out something that the engineers weren't?
They probably did. They just don't want to get sued and kept it under the wraps.
Could be, or
That's
maybe
what happens a
maybe
lot of times.
it would have cost them too much money to what's it called, to ground the whole fleet.
I mean, you have a buttload of airplanes you're going to have to ground. I mean, I think there was an issue when there was a couple of Boeing 737s actually that were malfunctioning and having issues. And I think they really had to get into like research and they had to really figure out what was going on. And turns out that there were some issues with the planes and that Boeing was just hiding the fact because they didn't want to pay the fees and all that stuff. So it's like I think a lot of times people know what's going on. They just play dumb, hoping they'll sweep it under the rug.
Mm-hmm. Like the time, time and history has found that it catches up to you anyway. You're not saving any money
Oh yeah,
because it does catch up to you eventually in lawsuits, and as we see, you know, we see in a lot of other
it's a lot of other
things.
stuff that there's always there's
I
something
get
constant.
controversial about, but you don't want me getting
No,
controversial.
please, Ema, full of God. I will stop this show right now, and we will just start from scratch again. Please, full of God, stop
I'm
it
not
now.
going to get
Thank
controversial.
you.
Don't worry.
Please don't.
Don't
Full of
worry.
God, please
Well,
no.
calm down.
Oh my God.
Calm down, buddy.
I've already had to burn a couple other episodes in general, but like it is what it is. So,
Take it, what's that drug that calms people down?
don't
Take
start
your,
telling,
take your Valiant and
don't
calm
start
down.
gaslighting me and telling me that I'm the problem when you were the one that started this whole thing. You're on record right now, and I can get millions of people to agree with me. So, no, we
Okay.
aren't getting controversial. Please don't. There have been multiple times I've asked you not to, and you have not listened to me and done it anyways. So I'm asking you nicely now, politely. Can you please stop doing that?
I will not get controversial. Don't worry.
Thank you.
How can you
Thank you.
talk that way to your poor
See,
widowed
this
mother?
is gaslighting right here. This is the bull that I had to deal with growing up. How I had problems and issues, and you kind of made it seem as if it was my fault and my problem to deal with, when really you were the one that would start this whole thing. Oh my God. All I wanted to talk about was like, I don't know, you ever had like a hunch when you were younger, or like a gut feeling, like
I had a gut feeling when I was younger that I was going to have a son like you someday.
what, someone smart and dignified? Yeah, you're lucky. You're freaking lucky.
You know the Jewish mother's curse? Come on, man. You have kids like yourself, so you'll see what kind of a kid you were. You see
That's
like
everyone. That's not a Jewish thing. That's not a Jewish thing, by the
I
way.
thought it was the Jewish mother's
No,
curse.
Ema.
No?
No, Ema. That's a every person thing psychologically, because you basically didn't resolve your issues. You didn't go to therapy, so you wind up confronting it by seeing it in your children. That's the answer.
I did go to therapy.
Yeah, and you didn't want to, and you got mad about it and called it bullshit.
I
And then
went to therapy. Believe me, I went to therapy quite a few times.
quite a few. Okay, how long? For how many
Did
years?
my time on the
For
couch.
how many years did you go to therapy?
Well, when I was I went all throughout college. I was going for therapy.
How many times a week? How many times a month?
It was about
serious.
once a week.
Once a week.
Regular-
Okay, for
once
what?
a
For
week,
3
yeah.
years straight?
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
yeah. And then later on, I went back to therapy when I was in my 30s for a
Okay.
couple of years, right? And then
Yeah.
I came to the point after a number of years going to therapy, and I said, you know what? I said, if I have free time, instead of going to therapy, I'm going to use that free time to go swimming, to take a walk, to play piano, play violin, just to do things that I find fun and interesting. And I discovered that was therapy in itself. Nothing against any therapist, please. I mean, your aunt is a therapist, and she's a good one too. So,
Yeah, but what I was saying is that it's a real journey, and you have to do a lot of work. I mean, decompressing and having a hobby isn't necessarily looking at yourself in the mirror and realizing who you are and what you should be doing and how to change habits and work on yourself. It's that, I mean, like, we're veering off a topic here, but I think that's the charm of our podcast. But the whole point is to realize, like, you never stop therapy. You just kind of like continue doing it until you're dead almost, because you need to constantly, in my opinion, from what I've experienced, that you're in a constant pit of digging yourself out of generational trauma that you've developed and generational traumatic habits that you developed that you're trying to break out of. And it's not a one fix all. It's just more like a constant, being in this notion of trying to separate your negative habits and focus on your positive habits and whatnot.
one of the habits I'm trying to break out of is getting into fights with you.
You don't have to get so defensive when I'm trying to have a conversation with you, Ema.
I'm being honest.
Yes, you're honestly being defensive. You're right. So what about when you're maybe, I guess, a teenager? Did you have any stories of you had some gut feelings about people or situations, and you were luckily saved by your gut feeling?
Well, there was one time I was waiting for a bus, and this man pulls up in a car and he offered me a ride. And the situation was the man did not match the car. The man looked very scuzzy, and the car he was driving was a very high-end car. In other words, the guy driving the car did not look like he matched the car. And of course, I told him no. And he said, oh, come on, I'm just trying to be nice. I'm offering you a ride. And I just said no. And then he drove away. So the people standing around me said to me, young lady, that was a very smart thing to do. So later on, I came home and I told my mother about the incident. And she asked me what time that was. I told her the time and the location. And she said it was right around that time they had on the news that a car had been stolen right around that neighborhood, right at that time.
Wow. How old were you when this happened?
I was about 17.
Oh, 17.
Yeah, I was like 17. Yeah. I was waiting for, actually, I was taking a bus downtown for my voice exam at Peabody
Oh,
after
wow.
school. Yeah.
Wow. What about like when you were, I guess, maybe hanging out with your friends and your friends want to do something crazy and stupid, and you're like, this seems like a bad idea. We probably shouldn't do it. Or you didn't listen to your gut at the time.
Mm, do. Um, it's not quite that I didn't listen to my gut. What happened was I was hanging around with a group of friends in college for a couple of years, and we always did all these things together. And then they started to talk about these parties that they were going to in Washington. And I was a little upset. I said, wait a minute. I said, why, I thought, we were all friends. And why didn't you invite me to come along with you to these parties? And one of my friends just said to me, don't worry about it. I said, yeah, I said, yes. I said, you to tell me, don't worry about it. I said, you guys went to these parties and had a great time. And I'm sitting at home doing nothing. I said, and so he said, believe me, he says, take my word for it. Don't worry about it. I found out later, these parties were really drugs, sex, perverted sex, really
Just the
nasty
worst.
stuff. Nasty
Terrible.
stuff, man.
Just
It was
terrible.
terrible, man, what these
I
guys
know,
were doing.
and I agree with you. I agree with you. It was terrible.
Yeah, you agree with it. Yeah. Now who's arguing?
So what other things did you do in college that wasn't, group sex and drugs? No, that's you were talking about. You said you didn't do those things.
But I wasn't. No.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Let me see. Not too. Oh, yeah, not really wild stuff. It was okay, of course, the underage drinking, of course, having friends, like one friend one boyfriend. In fact, I wasn't even in college. I was like 16 years old. Took me to this bar in downtown Baltimore, and I saw him slip the the guy at the door, the bouncer who was checking IDs. I saw him slip him a 20.
Oh, wow.
And the guy let me in.
And then didn't he try to give you? We talked about this. Like he tried to give you like a heavier drink, and you like watered it down or something like that.
Yeah.
And, like he was trying to think he's gonna get lucky, and you're like totally sober, and he was like totally like annoyed and disappointed. Jeez Louise. Okay. Did you guys ever play have any poker games or any other card games you would play together and whatnot?
I wasn't much of a card person. I like chess. I still do. I'm still not much of a. I'm not much of a mahjong person. I'm not much of a card person, but I enjoy playing chess. I'm lousy at the game. The only people I can beat are 8-year-old kids.
Yeah.
Like my 8 and 9, maybe my 12-year-old grandchildren. That's about it. But of course, your brother, when he was 8 years old, beat me in 2 moves.
Yeah.
But even though I'm a lousy player, I just enjoy it. I enjoy sitting in a chess game with, say, a cup of tea or something, like on a Friday night.
So who would you play chess with in college?
Just friends, different friends. Go over somebody's house, and they were having a party, and people were playing different like card games and things. And one person took out the chess game, and I sat down and played chess with this guy. I always think I played chess with his brother. And his brother was totally high on marijuana and beat me.
Oh gosh. So
I mean, I went to marijuana parties, but I didn't inhale.
Yeah. Did you? So I guess in the 70s it was an interesting moment because that's when
there was one incident though that my voice teacher was a little upset about.
Yeah.
What happened was this friend of mine, he was the choir director at the church where I sang. And he used to like to go around to like these, you'd hear about these like old churches that were being either knocked down or renovated, or they were, they had old artifacts that, people could come and take that were being basically, you know, uh, like property that was being bought up. Like your father did that. Remember when
Yeah,
property was bought up by the
acquisitions. We
state,
do. Yeah,
and there's no owner that comes forward and says that they want to take any of the property inside. You are allowed. It's open to the public, and you're allowed to take what you want.
yeah,
So remember, your father would often brought home like, very like old things that he was permitted to take.
correct.
So this friend of mine, in fact, as a matter of fact, he got this old harmonium. You know what a harmonium is?
No,
Look it up sometime. It looks like a very small organ, very
okay.
small. I guess you would call it a very small organ. And you pump. They have these pedals that you pump, and it works on the same principle as a wind organ. It's an organ that you pump the billows.
Oh, I
The air
see.
blows through it, right? Only it looks like a small piano with pedals. It's called a harmonium. And as a
Yeah.
matter of fact, there are some old movies from the 20s and 30s that show people playing especially during the 30s, that will show people out in the country playing a harmonium, particularly women playing a harmonium.
Was it a woman's instrument?
I don't know if it was a woman's instrument or not, but the two movies I saw where somebody was playing it, in both movies it was women who were playing it.
Oh,
One
wow.
was a school teacher in one movie, and the other one was just a girl who was playing it to accompany somebody who was singing. So he got a harmonium. He also got a priest's cap and cap
Gown?
and cape.
Oh, wow.
So we were going that night to a concert at Towson, and he said, "Hey," he says, "you want to wear this to the want to wear this?" I said, "Yeah." I put it on. I thought it was cool, and I put it on, and I wore it to the concert. Now, my voice teacher was not Catholic; she was Protestant.
Yeah, okay.
But when she saw me wearing it, at my voice, when the next time I came to my voice lesson, she told me it upset her.
Really?
And I said, "Why?" She goes, "Because to her it was like sacred clothing
Interesting.
that you just don't wear like that."
No, I get that. I get that. I mean, it drives me up the wall when I see like there's this one rapper dude who's like I can appreciate what he's trying to do. He's trying to promote Judaism, and in some of his rap videos he's wearing tefillin. But I found it frustrating because he was wearing tefillin and it was a cloudy day and it looked like it was raining. And I'm like, you don't wear tefillin in the rain. And this isn't some getup. Like I see what he's trying to do. He's trying to make it like cool and hip, but like I don't believe Judaism should be cool and hip. I don't think
Was he making an artistic statement, maybe?
Yes, he was. He was making an artistic statement.
Maybe was it really rain, or was it just simulated?
No. He was in New York City, I think at the marathon where it was pouring down rain, and he was doing some kind of rap video thing in tefillin. And I'm like,
that's not good.
Dude, like, I get your point. He's trying to be like pro-religious, pro-Judaism, but like he doesn't understand the halachas and the nuances. And I think that's what happens a lot of times where like I'm on these various like forums, like, and I see people who are really passionate about Judaism, really care about Judaism, and they want to serve Hashem and do Torah mitzvos, but they don't know exactly how to do it. And when they do things, it's like it comes off really, really sacrilegious. And I'm
go ahead.
No, I'm almost done, but I would like to know what you had to say.
Well, I remember, now that you bring this to mind, after Leonard Nimoy passed away, evidently he was also a artist in the area of photography. And he had some photographs, like artistic photographs that he took, which I was not happy about as an Orthodox Jew. He had a girl who was like, I guess, practically nude, who was posing in a tallis. I was not too happy when I saw these photographs that he took.
Yeah,
I
I
know he
could,
was trying to make an artistic statement, but
yeah, I
other
see.
stuff,
I'm looking at
you
these
know.
photos now. I see what it is.
Mhm.
It's like I see what you're trying to do, but you're really not helping. It doesn't
Yeah.
like it's very frustrating because it's like you don't want to discourage them. You don't want to tell them that they're like, heathens and doing terrible things because like first off, that's never the right thing to say. And also that
Mhm.
they're not getting it, like their heart's in the right place. But it's like I just saw there's a picture of a woman who's naked wearing uh, a very thinly veiled um robe, and she's wearing tefillin, a hand tefillin. And I'm
Mm.
like, dude, no,
Mhm.
stop. I mean, in
Yeah.
Judaism, sexuality in Judaism is beautiful and amazing, and it's supposed to be part of your life, and it's to be able to bring children in this world. But it's really about the beauty of the privacy of it all, and to show it
Yeah.
off like that kind of destroys anything you were trying to do,
Mhm.
And it's like I think Modest Friedman had this whole thing about like, doesn't anybody blush? Kind of concept of like we're too open
Mm.
nowadays, and
Mhm.
there's no interest, so to speak. There's no like there's such desensitized people. Like I was listening to this one podcast and they were talking about how like in the early 1900s, like they would just get off by listening to a woman sing on a piano, and like nowadays we're so exposed to so many different like photos and videos that like it's almost like I'm desensitized to a woman singing. I really am. It's just like, okay, whatever. It's not I get the Kolisha thing. I understand the importance of it all. I'm just saying that the sensitivity that it has to me is a lot lower than it would be to someone who, is more medoctic, I would say. But that's the whole point. It's just like there's a lot of beauty in the resistance and in the restrictions of Judaism, I feel. And I think some people don't get that. I think they feel like as if they don't want to be told what to do kind of attitude. And that's not really what Judaism is. We're not trying to tell you what to do. We're just saying this is what's to be done. It's like going ahead and saying, well, in order for that switch to work, that electrical wire has to go to A, and that electrical wire has to go to B. And you're like, you
Mhm.
can't tell me what to do. I'll do whatever I want. You can do whatever you want, but that electrical
But if
wiring
that
will
electric
not
wire
work.
goes to the wrong
Oh,
place, you got to go.
exactly.
Yes,
Like it's
you have a
it's
real problem.
it's like you can do whatever you want, fine. You have your rights, but also understand like Moshe Emes Visarasa Emes, that like Moses is the truth and God is the truth. So no matter how hard you try, the truth will always going to be at the end. So do you want to find the truth at the end of your life or find the truth at the beginning or middle? And that's really what it is. It's like you can go ahead and start asking, well, can a woman wear a yarmulke? Like there are some nuances, and maybe on some level they shouldn't because it's a man's garment. But
Mhm.
why worry about wearing a yarmulke when you could just like, if you really want to cover your hair, wear a tichel or
Mhm.
wear a hat or wear a shaitel? Like, why are you talking about a yarmulke?
Mhm.
Like you're just kind of like you missed the boat on
Like
what's.
yeah, Spin was talking about this once with when I went to Minnesota, the idea of women's rights in the early '70s
Mhm.
was really coming to the forefront, and especially in Judaism. And and he said these women who, instead of keeping the mitzvahs like Shabbos, Kosher, and Taras Mishpacha, which is not only a woman's mitzvah, but these are the real meat of Judaism. They want to be caught up to the Torah. They want to put on tefillin. They want to be included in the minyan. And so Modest Friedman said, what you have to ask yourself, am I looking for an emotional experience or am I looking for a religious experience? And if you're going to look for a religious experience, the only way to get a religious experience is to follow the the religion, the religion itself. Otherwise, what are you doing? You're just kind of feeding your own ego.
Yeah.
You're not really getting the actual religious experience, but experience that's being made available to you. And it's also like in Judaism too. As I heard, the funny thing was, it was the cantor of this Reformed temple that I used to teach. And we probably went over our broadcast that there were a couple men from our shul who I asked the principal, can I bring them to the class to talk about tefillin? And she said, yes, that would be a great idea. So this cantor told me he was one that invited them in and escorted them to the classroom and presented them. And he said to the class, many of us look at Judaism at restrictions, but he says a lot of people don't look at these restrictions at all as restrictions. They look at them as being very spiritually fulfilling. And now we're going to hear from some people who find these, what others think of as restrictions, find them to be spiritually fulfilling. And that's how he introduced them. Later on, this cantor told me that he had several friends that become Bali Tshuva. So he was quite familiar with the whole, the process.
So I have a question.
But the thing is that there's a spirituality too. Like if you're looking for a religious experience, not only will you get that religious experience, you're going to get the spirituality that's going to come along with that. And the only way to get that spirituality is to do, like you said, plug the correct wire in the right receptacle.
Yeah.
If you want to get the electricity flowing correctly.
So I have another question then. When you weren't religious, did you want to do certain things that now looking back realize good heart, good intentions, but just wrong or not good execution? Like, I know you were an atheist Jew, but was there anything else you were like, oh, I want to say Tehillim, and you didn't say the right Tehillim or something? I know that sounds ridiculous, but like what?
Oh my goodness, yeah. But what the funny thing is, when I look back at my life, there were several points in my life where I could have been religious had the right people come along and directed me. Mm-hmm. I didn't have the right people in my life to direct me, because I remember there was one time that I actually said to my mother, I think I was like around 14 or so, I said to my mother, I said, the Christians have missionaries that go out and try to, bring people close to Christianity. Why don't we Jews have the same thing? And my mother, not knowing anything about Chabad, said, there's no such thing. And then I started to read all these articles about how Orthodox Judaism in general is starting to go away by the wayside. And, it's an old religion that has no relevance to and I started to read these articles and I thought, well, if that's what's happening, I don't want to be left behind the times. So there was also like a series of events and things that, we're not, I thought to myself, hey, we're not religious. We eat out in treif restaurants, but we don't have treif in the house. Now this is ridiculous, type thing. But there was when I was in Israel, it happened to be Rosh Chodesh when I actually wanted to make the commitment to become a religious Jew. And so I went, for this Shabbos, the Shabbaton. And so they told us when we benched to bench Rosh Chodesh. I didn't know Rosh Chodesh is just 1 or 2 days. And it didn't occur to me till 2 months later when I was saying Birkas Hamazon. I go, wait a minute. I've been saying Ya'aleh V'Yavo every time I bench for the past 2 months.
That's amazing. I love it. By the way, adding to the whole religious thing, I just saw an article. It was talking about since the 1970s in Israel, the religious population has increased. Guess how much percent?
80%?
No.
Less.
More.
90%.
More.
100%?
More.
What? You gotta be kidding.
509% since the 1970s.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That is absolutely amazing.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, first off, and I tell this to people all the time, and I saw some articles and some memes pointing it out, and people were making fun of it, but I'm like, this is very true. You have the Haredi people where they start having kids at 18, and then they have kids that they have 10 kids, and each of those kids start having kids at 18. So
Mhm.
like by like within 40 years,
How about starting to have 10 kids when you're 28?
20 exactly. You know, and then like you have on the flip side, people that aren't religious only having one or two kids, maybe some of them not
Mhm,
even getting married, you
mhm,
know, some of them like just not having kids or adopting or anything like that. So it's just a natural progression where one side's going to keep on getting bigger and the other side's keep on getting smaller. It's
mhm.
just a population mathematics where it's like you're gonna have more people on this side, which will create more voting power, which kind of create more, you know, in in
Uh-huh.
in the in the country. That's what
Mhm.
I think is just so funny, where like people like were talking about it, and I saw people like saying like, "Oh, that's ridiculous," "Oh, that's not true," you know, like, do you not know basic simple mathematics? Like, in order to have a proper like, in order to for one person to feel like they actually contribute to the population growth, they need to have 3 children, because 1 and 1,
Right.
okay, has
Just
2.
replacement for mom and dad,
All
right?
you're doing is replacing. In order
Yes.
to increase, you just need 3, and
Mhm.
that's it. And people like it's just so funny. People are so up in their heads with all their emotional drama and all their emotional anger and frustration. They don't realize how much is just ridiculous and pointless.
You know, I used to listen in the 80s and 90s to, you know, the psychology talk shows,
Yes.
and people would call up these talk show psychologists with the stupidest, idiotic, you know, problems. And I remember one time listening to all these crazy people, and just one time I yelled into the radio, "You're bored? Get married and have a bunch of kids. You won't be bored."
Yeah, but they don't want to have that. They don't want that. That's the
They'd rather be
truth.
bored
They'd rather be
than be bored
bored
and have
because
all
it's
these stupid problems.
well, because it's too scary to have children. People go on these like tirades and these talks and all this fear because they feel like having a kid is going to take away from them. And if that's how they feel, then great. They shouldn't have kids because they'd
Well,
probably be a terrible
but the
parent.
thing is, that a lot of times, like, well, I remember, of course, as a teenager and in my early 20s, you know, the college student, you know, I didn't want to have kids. Of course, you know, I was too busy having fun. What teenager or person in their early 20s really wants to saddle themselves with a kid? But then as I got older, um, it's like, yeah, your freedom is restricted, but you know something? What you it's like an exchange. It's like an exchange. Yes, you do give up a certain amount of freedom, but what you get back is so much more. Like, I remember after I had your older sister,
Yeah.
it was, oh wow, I love this. I remember calling my mother and saying, "Ma, I just love, you know, I just love this baby so much." I said, "I want to have another right away." And my mother said to me, "Let's not be so hasty." But it was like, wow, it was, you know, I couldn't believe that having kids could be so much fun.
I think people are seeing it as like a drain on their finances, a drain on their energy. You know, they see how much their parents complain. They see how much how hard they had to work with. You know, based off of the incompetency of their parents. They don't want to have that. They also do this excuse. I love hearing it. The world's so terrible. I don't want to bring kids into such a terrible world. It's like, okay, so what are you doing to make it better? Like,
Right.
if that's really what you feel, so do you volunteer on the weekends? Do you donate your
Hmm.
money to like various causes? Like, if you're passionate about that, really passionate about it,
Hmm.
like you might have a case there. But the question is, are you really doing like that?
Yeah, but the thing to do then is to have children and raise them to be very good people. And now you are helping to make the world better, because now you're producing a next generation of good, moral, kind individuals. And that's the thing. That's the most effective thing that you could do.
No, I agree. I agree.
But DeSantis said something very meaningful a few months ago. He said, he said, we're not all of us are born under the most ideal of circumstances, but as human beings, don't we have the right to at least have a chance?
Interesting.
And the reason he said that was because he appointed, you heard about him, he appointed the first
I
Hispanic
really,
woman
again,
as the
I
Attorney
don't want to talk
General.
about politics, Emma, please. This is what I talked about in the
Okay,
beginning of
all
our
right.
conversation,
All
the
right, so we
beginning of our
run round and
podcast.
robin.
I
We
literally
get
said,
full
please, no
circle.
politics. I want politics off the table. And you said yes. You got mad at me. You said it was
Okay,
all
but
my
I
fault,
just
and then
thought
you
that what,
did it
listen,
anyways.
I
And you're gonna
just
go
thought-
back again.
quiet a minute. Look, let me explain myself. I was just quoting him because I thought that what he said was so meaningful, and that's it. I'm not getting involved in politics. I'm
You're
just
right.
saying that
You're
I
right.
thought this
You're
was a
right.
very meaningful quote. Okay, it's like quoting Abraham Lincoln or George Washington. If Abraham Lincoln or George Washington said something that was very meaningful, would you say, "Hey, you're getting involved in politics"? No, I'm quoting somebody that I
Because
thought
those
said something very
politics are
meaningful.
dead, Emma. Because those politics are dead. I have a quote for you. Do not compare yourself to others. If you do so, you are insulting yourself.
Oh, I like that. Where'd you get that?
Adolf Hitler.
Oh, whoa, no.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. So maybe just making a quote or whatnot. Look, I
Oh,
really
that's
would,
horrible, man.
I would really have you not making
You-
quotes
oh,
and talking
you-
about
you-
politics. I would
You
really
suckered
appreciate
me
it.
into that.
Suckered you in for what?
You suckered me into that quote, to saying how I like that quote.
Look, it is what it is. The point I'm trying to make is
What
like,
they say a broken cock is right twice a day.
it's just silly. It's just silly. It's just like, I would rather not have that. It's not just because I don't want to alienate listeners. It's also the fact that, like, I don't think it's productive. It's just right now in this climate, there's no point in talking about politics.
I'm not talking about politics, okay?
All right, great, fantastic. I'm really glad. So continuing on our conversation, gut feelings,
Let's talk about respect for parents.
respect for parents. Great.
And not yelling at your mother.
I didn't yell. I didn't raise my voice at all. I was making a statement that made you uncomfortable, and therefore you lashed out on me and tried to, gaslight me and make me look like the bad guy. So you feel like victimization is the form of, righteousness, which I don't think is really
Oh, I
productive.
like that. I'm going to put that on a bumper sticker. Victimization is a form of righteousness. I love that. Let's make a bumper sticker of that.
How about you do it? You had I had the quote. You have the idea. It's all you. I'm not stopping you. Any last words about following your gut?
No, except I'd like to eat my dinner so I can feed my gut.
Waka 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 waka. Well, thank you so much, Emma. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
You too have a good Shabbos.
Last word for the podcast.
I love you.
That's it. All right. Love you too.
Bye-bye.